Hey everyone, my name is Eric and welcome to What Did I Miss?, where today I'm going to discuss all 4 Star Trek films that are currently in some state of production. Just this last week, 2 movies were announced that fans did not even know about, and since then I've seen a lot of questions online about what is going on with Star Trek. So I thought I would break down each film, where it is in terms of production, as well as when and where we can expect to see it. Now, the first movie I'm going to discuss is the one that we know is getting made in 2024, and that is the Section 31 movie starring Michelle Yeoh. This movie was first announced as a series back in 2019, and then went into pre-production in 2020 with plans to begin filming during that same year. The pandemic ended those plans as hardly anything was able to film in 2020, and it was thought that the concept for a Section 31 project may have been killed altogether at that time. Then fast forward to April of 2023, and in a surprise to many, Paramount formally announced that Section 31 was going into production that same year, and that it would now be a film instead of a series, and that it would be released on the Paramount Plus streaming service. This would make this movie the first in the Star Trek catalog to not get a release in the theaters, and at the time, Alex Kurtzman, the head of Star Trek at Paramount, stated that this film marked a turning point for the franchise, and that in the future, they would be producing more films to be released on streaming, but also said that they had plans for other films to be given a wider release in theaters. Unfortunately, the project got hit with another setback after a writers and actors strike effectively shut down American film and series production for about 6 months, so filming on Section 31 did not begin until 2024. This means that the best case scenario would see Section 31 released towards the end of 2024, but given the amount of post-production that goes into these types of projects, it is more likely that the movie will not be released until 2025. As far as where it will be released, even though the initial announcement for the film stated that it would be shown on Paramount Plus, recent developments have brought that into question as well. Since the end of the actor strike, it has been made public that the company that owns Star Trek, Paramount, may be merging with Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers, who also operates the streaming service Max, has been very open about their desire to purchase Paramount and to release its properties under their banner. Coincidentally, this past week all Star Trek films that were not produced by J.J. Abrams were taken off Paramount Plus and added to the streaming service Max. While this isn't necessarily a sign that a move to Max for the entire franchise is inevitable, it does raise the possibility of Section 31 being released on Max instead of Paramount Plus, even if the latter streaming service still exists. Max is a provider that is known for having more adult-oriented content than Paramount Plus, which would make it a perfect landing place for a movie like Section 31, which is sure to be darker and perhaps more violent than any Star Trek film we have seen before. Max also has a lot more subscribers than Paramount Plus, meaning that releasing the film on Max would allow more people the opportunity to watch it. This would seem to be very important to the company if this film is set to mark a new beginning of Star Trek films sent to streaming instead of being released in theaters. I'm sure that we'll find out more about the release of Star Trek Section 31 in 2024, so make sure that you are subscribed to this channel so that you hear about any future updates. As I mentioned, even though the Section 31 film will be sent directly to streaming, wherever that may end up being, there are other Star Trek film projects that are being made as theatrical films. The first I would like to discuss is a sequel to the last movie that was released in theaters by Star Trek, and this would be the 4th film in the J.J. Abrams saga that began in 2009 and starred Chris Pine, Zachary Quinto, and others. It has now been 8 years since the last film in the series, Star Trek Beyond, was released, and while the movie was well received by fans, it was not the financial success that Paramount was looking for. Because of this, the next film in the series has been in development hell since before Beyond was even released, with multiple scripts, directors, and even actors being attached to it. Due to these persistent issues, it was believed that this movie was all but dead at Paramount, but it seems like every few months, someone that worked on the project states that they think it is still in production. The last update was given by an individual who worked on the screenplay but left the project to work on something else, and according to them, the movie is still in the works, and that Paramount has a script that they like and are just looking for a new director. It is hard to believe that this film will actually ever get made, and it seems like at this point, even the actors working on it believe the same, with Chris Pine even stating in an interview recently that he believes the film is cursed. The problems with this movie have been well documented by me and others, so you probably know most of what has occurred already, but if not, I do have quite a few videos about this that you can check out after this video. Of the 4 projects that I'm going to discuss in this video, I have the least faith in this movie ever getting made, even if deep down, I would like to see another adventure with this crew. But given how Paramount felt about the success of Star Trek Beyond, as well as the schedules and price tags attached to the actors involved, I do not think they will be able to produce another film in the series that would be a good investment. Just the cost of bringing back all the main cast would balloon the movie's budget to a point where the film would need to be a blockbuster success just to make its money back. And with less people going to the movies now than in 2016, it is hard to see a way for that to happen. If Paramount truly wanted to do another film in the series and make it a success, they would have to find a way to bring the budget down, which would probably mean that fans would only get 1 or 2 characters from the last film to return. So while it does seem like Paramount still wants to make another Star Trek film with J.J. Abrams, it does not look like the sequel is a real possibility. My guess is that if and when Paramount is bought by Warner Brothers, they will also announce that J.J. Abrams is no longer producing movies for Star Trek and move on from there with newer projects like Section 31. However, this next film that was just announced is the biggest mystery to fans given the description, and that is a reported prequel to the 2009 Star Trek film. This story was released by Deadline and states that Paramount has tapped Toby Haynes to direct a new film that expands on the Star Trek universe, with Seth Green-Smith penning the script. The script is being described as an origin story for the 2009 Star Trek film, which itself was ironically billed as a new origin story for the same crew when it was originally released. What is also confusing about this announcement is that the story is set to take place decades before the events in the 2009 Star Trek film, which is the same time period that the series Strange New Worlds also inhabits. This could mean that audiences will see a new version of Captain Pike's crew on the big screen, which may be confusing considering many of these same characters will be played by different actors on the aforementioned series. It is also interesting that the person who wrote this script, Seth Green-Smith, is known for his work in the horror genre, working as a writer or producer on such films as the Child's Play and It remakes. Director Toby Haynes is also known for his work in the horror genre, having worked on the series Being Human, as well as directing the infamous Star Trek-esque Black Mirror episode titled USS Callister, which if you have not seen yet, I highly recommend. Because of their involvement, many fans believe this will be a darker project than most other Star Trek films and possibly deal with the Romulan or Klingon wars, since both occur roughly in the same time period. Since this movie script was just announced, it is hard to say when it will get made, but the fact that it does have a writer and director already puts it further into production than the last film that I just discussed. So while I do think there is more of a chance that this film will see the light of day than a sequel to Star Trek Beyond, I still have my doubts, especially if the film decides to recast characters that are currently appearing on Strange New Worlds, which I believe would weaken the effect of that series. The final Star Trek film that could see the light of day is possibly the one that fans are pining for the most, forgive the pun, and that is a new film starring Sir Patrick Stewart as Jean-Luc Picard. This news came from Sir Patrick himself while he was a guest on a podcast. In that interview, Sir Patrick stated that he was told that a new movie script was being written that was for his character and that he would be reading it soon. While this news was revealed when the podcast was released in January of 2024, the interview was actually recorded in November of 2023, which means that by this time, the script in question should have been completed. Since the final season of Star Trek Picard, fans have been begging Paramount for another adventure with the characters that took part in that season. So much so that a campaign began based on the idea of a new series named Star Trek Legacy, which led to an online petition that has so far gained tens of thousands of signatures. While the script for this potential film does seem to focus on Picard like the series did, it does not sound like this would be a true continuation of the adventures of the crew of the Enterprise G. So Star Trek Legacy fans may be disappointed, but if you look back at the series Star Trek Picard, each of the 3 seasons told a new story with new supporting characters, so it would make sense that a new film would continue this tradition. Sir Patrick Stewart has also discussed in the past how the idea of exploring his character is much more interesting to him than rehashing old adventures, so it's very possible that this film will not be anything like any of the seasons of Star Trek Picard. Towards the end of that series, much more focus was put on the relationships that Picard had created or left behind during his lifetime, and his desire to create new meaningful connections with people. The idea of a loving partner was also flirted with throughout the series, and it's possible that this movie would center around Picard finding a new love in his life. It is also very likely that this film would deal with the death of his character, as the actor who plays him is now in his 80s, which means that besides running for president of the United States, there are not a lot of jobs that a man in his 80s is equipped to continue doing. If there is one thing that Star Trek does not have a great track record with, is killing off significant characters, so a true send-off for Picard would be an important chapter for the character and the franchise itself. I also think that this film, like the Section 31 film, will be released to streaming instead of to the theaters. This would allow the producers to make the film much more of a character study and not require a lot of legacy characters to return. While this movie is not as far along as any of the others I've mentioned, I do believe there's a good chance that it will get created as a send-off for Picard and that we could possibly hear something in 2024 about the movie going forward, with a plan to release it the year after the Section 31 film is released, giving Star Trek 2 films in the pipeline to be released on streaming. Also, since all the films featuring Picard were just moved to Max, I would guess that this movie would be released there as well. Well, that is all I have for today, but let me know in the comments if I missed anything. Also, let me know which of these 4 films you are most excited for. Thank you for watching this video. Please hit that like button to help support the work that I do, and I'll see you next time on What Did I Miss?